there finally now a momentum for circularity actions? And why would it be that it happens now when it hasn't happened so much before? Is there something that actually changed?
Sustainability is so high up on the agenda now for many companies. So I think also for circularity, this is hopefully the time when things will happen. I think that there are lots of prerequisites that are coming into place. We see several technical solutions that will help on the circularity side, but we also see something that I think we will explore a bit during the panel, and that is that we see more and more understanding of us needing to cooperate throughout the value chain, and that those partnerships are taking place. So I think actually we have some momentum right now in this area.
Yes, I do agree, because there's both a more sense of urgency, of course, across the world that we see at COP also, but I also see that there's more and more of a business case connected to sustainability and circularity specifically, and we have examples of how we can make better business doing circular solutions. For example, taking back, we produce a lot of heat exchangers, for example, and taking back those that we can 100% recycle and then give our customers a better, more efficient process, 50%. That creates a win-win-win, both for the customer, for us, and for the world. And when you have those examples, I think it's going to kick off. And if we can tell more of these stories, then I'm very, very hopeful.
Also, I would like to highlight the fact that when it's integrated to your business, when it's the fundamental where you build on with your business, I think that's when the change happens. And I think if I look at the discussion here at COP28, this is what we're discussing, how to integrate sustainability and also from this perspective, circularity into the very core of your business. It was for me also one of the reasons why I decided to join Outokumpu half a year ago, that we have really been able to build our raw material strategy based on that, even if it's not enough purely to use circular solutions or in our case scrap. I think this is the fundamental change, that when you are able to build your business, build value, build economical value towards both your customers as well as then to your company, I think this is where the change hopefully is accelerated. Before, value chains were really linear. We were working with a supplier and then maybe with a customer. I think now for us it's more and more about how do we build ecosystems, how do we build value, maybe circular solutions across the entire value chain, and partner with both end customers who can also deliver scrap to be then further also used in the production, and then suppliers. And this is an area where Outokumpu a few months ago also launched this inner circle where we can actually connect the existing supply chains and utilize those to create more value with circularity. So it's more and more about collaboration with multiple players instead of going linearly across the supply chain.
Again, on the big picture, it's just, we have to present the business case, I think, to make it evident that it's better in the long run.
Is it mostly the economical reasons that make the customer buy circular solution?
It is very many times the economical reasons, because I think that if we talk to the purchasing department, they will measure economical targets. But if we do get a foot in and we start creating more partnerships and we get a closer relationship, long-term commitments, then you're talking to others who see something else than just the economical gains, and then you reach much further and get more of the circular business.
We have high ambitions when it comes to sustainability in general. We are to be net zero by 2040. Today, approximately 4% of the emission comes from our upstream, the materials and components that goes into our value chain. That might sound as not too much, but that will grow as we get more electric products into our roads. We put a lot of focus into understanding which are the materials and components that will have the biggest impact. And two of those are steel and aluminium. We are now using fossil-free steel into our electric trucks, so we are gradually introducing that. On the going from virgin to recycled steel, we are also starting to do that. So we have the frames in the truck, so we are exchanging those from virgin steel to recycled steel instead, and that will give a benefit of 80% less of CO2 using that.
We actually launched 2 hours ago a partnership with Alfa Laval on Circle Green, which is able to then reduce Alfa Laval's emissions by 93%. The product is highly based on utilizing recycled materials up to 100%. So I think this is a great achievement in demonstrating also not only a company using a low carbon product, but also how can we speed up the transition in the industry through talking about it and through partnering together with forerunner companies.
It's very important to us. We have to, because we also have the net zero targets, for example, net zero by 2050. And to get there, we have to do that across our value chain and supply chain. And then we have to find also even more of these partnerships across to make it happen and reach our targets, so we can help our customers reach their targets, because we are also a supplier. Like you told me, one of our customers, Acro Solution, is very happy about this, because now they can reach their targets even easier or faster, and at the top of that, we can increase their process efficiency. So it's really a win-win again in this example.
And I do think that when we think about hard-to-abate sector in general, when you think about steel, aluminum, all these products, we're really far away in the value chain. So if we look at the end customer demand and pressure for low-carbon solutions, we will need to also find the companies who are ahead, who are committed to 1.5 target to really kind of drive the industry forward, because when we maybe look at the more traditional buyers who are looking at the price, whether it's procurement in organization, that's a more difficult maybe path to take than going with the companies.
It's so important with these partnerships because it's there are so many technologies that today are only in prototype phase or in just testing that needs to be brought to the market in order for all of us, not only big companies like ours, but also small and medium-sized companies, to be able to be net zero by 2050. And many of them are still under development. And to bring them to market in a cost-competitive way, there needs to be companies like ours to say that we are prepared to pay a premium cost, we are prepared to be there to bring it to market so that we can then decarbonize our whole supply chain.
Yeah.
Then, of course, there might be so that there needs to be other types of policy measures in order actually for this to happen.
So it's a premium, but it's also risk mitigation
It is,
somehow.
yeah, and it's a long-term gain that we see. It's the biggest business opportunity there is at the moment.
I would say that in order, if I look at steel industry, for example, in order for companies to push down emissions, utilizing recycled raw materials is the fastest way currently to drive those emission reductions down. So definitely there will be more demand for recycled raw materials, I think, regardless of the industry. Utilizing scrap wherever it is the closest makes also sense from sustainability or emission perspective.
For us, it's really important to find these local ecosystems, because it doesn't make sense to send our equipment all over the world to recycle. Then we won't get the gains of reducing carbon emissions. So that's one of the difficulties, that we need to have local partners to scale our circular business models.
We would like to source as close as possible. Then, of course, that's not always possible. I think, unfortunately, we see more protectionism coming up that could have an impact. We also saw things during the pandemics that supply chains were disrupted. So that could be another reason to why we want to source more locally. In general, I think regulation is needed to accelerate also in these areas.
We have been, or the steel industry has been regulated quite heavily on the production. So, for example, carbon border adjustment mechanism, that is taking a stand on how the produced material is taken to different countries and what is the carbon footprint of that. Where we don't necessarily yet see a strong regulation when it comes to steel industry is the actual end product and demand for whether it's circular or low carbon solutions in general. And this is something we are struggling sometimes with, because at the end of the day, we have set a science-based target to 2030 to reduce 42% across our value chain. And then if we look at beyond 2030, this is where the difficulty, so to say, comes, that what are the different solutions and technologies, how to get there. So we need to find mechanisms to finance our journey. One thing is end customer, voluntary end customer demand. One thing is, could there be regulation? And then, of course, how incentives and financial sector is supporting the decarbonization is another. So we need not only one support that can take us to net zero, but multiple areas where demand regulation could be one.
We welcome a lot of rules because we want to be ahead. We want to do this, and the more you get actually paid for doing good because of regulations being in place, the better. But I also see and really want to see more of real data behind all these regulations, how you have to be transparent to show that you are living up to what we have to. So
I think this is one of the challenge. We have been really supportive of carbon or CBAM, in other words, and I think there, for example, we see that the purpose is really good. It's really important from our perspective, from the entire industry perspective. But then what happens if we don't really get the right data, if we don't get transparently the impacts of other markets producers? So I think there again, the control, or how do you then verify and validate the actual data that different countries are reporting? I think this is the biggest challenge.
I think that goes for recycled content as well, for
Everything,
example.
yeah.
Karin.
that's why it's also important for us to partner up with Outokumpu and others who are serious players.
But still very important. We start from the biggest emitters. What are those materials and components? And then we try to decarbonize those. And one of the main issues is really to get the data from the suppliers. So it's hard actually today to get transparency throughout the value chain.
And it's very complicated, but so important. But then also we need it for investors to know it's needed billions of dollars or to get all the investments that we need, and to have that you need the facts on the table, that is data.
There needs to be some way of capturing this in a much more efficient way than we do today.
But I think to scale this, to accelerate green transition in the steel industry, regulation would highly support maybe getting them bigger volumes and really driving, whether it's green steel, green cement, any kind of solution. So I would say that it is required going forward. That's despite our purpose. That's why I really believe that circularity alone will not solve this. That's why we need to innovate low carbon raw materials. For example, in steel, we need to find also new solutions beyond circularity, which should be the first thing that we do. But just relying stainless steel production on circular material, it will not be enough.
This is maybe not a short-term action, but still something I would like to highlight, and that is to always keep the system perspective in mind so that we can balance between different things to get sustainability going in a good way.
And find all over the world local players that can give us the recycled materials, and recycled also reuse our products, because they last for a very, very long time, over 30 years, many of them. And then also, again, drive what I mentioned, the data collection across supply chain, because that's not only from our perspective very important, but it's important for all of us on stage, and it can help the world move faster for circularity.
We will accelerate the green transition because whether it's hydrogen, whether it's electrification of vehicles, which is connecting to Volvo, we will actually require more stainless steel. So through circularity, we can help other industries, not just by our emission reductions, we can help other industries to really drive this journey forward.